Hello, my name is Lisa Rasaka. I head the European Investment Bank's representation office in Stockholm, in Sweden. And the European Investment Bank, the EIB, is a bank owned by all the EU member states. So Sweden is also one of the owners, and we have existed for some 60 years. And we invest in projects such as innovation, infrastructure, environment, and small and medium-sized enterprises. And in our way of working, we actually need a lot of engineers, because when we evaluate projects that we finance, we have a strong due diligence where we look at all the technical aspects as well, and also when we monitor them.
Thank you. And over to Ronja.
Yes, so my name is Ronja, and I work at Stora Enso. And Stora Enso is the renewable materials company. And we try to replace fossil-based materials with the tree-based ones. And it's a Swedish and Finnish company, so we have head offices in both countries. And I work as a sales development manager in Jönköping in Sweden at one of our 6 divisions called Packaging Solutions.
And last but not least, Johan.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Johan Lannerings. I work for SKF, the ball bearing manufacturer, as typically said. But I think one of the interesting parts in this aspect is that we've come quite a bit from producing bearings, and what we deliver and work with our customers is primarily uptime to reduce waste. And we're also, which I find exciting, really well positioned where the world is heading today, because we are a part of pretty much every machine that rotates in the world and even outside on various planets. So I'm head of sustainability, but I also work with clean tech, you know, the startups and new technologies that we want to bring to our customers. And a large part of this work now is on a strategic level.
Thank you all for that. So let's begin. And I just want to say that if anyone in the audience have any questions, you can write them in the chat or unmute and speak up. So firstly, what is sustainability to you? Who wants to begin? Johan.
Well,
what is sustainability for you?
No, I think it's crucially important. It's why I go to work. We had a short discussion here beforehand, and I would actually say that what we're seeing in the world right now is as big as digitalization was, and it's not really being realized, but it impacts everything that we're doing. And I think being a part of this transformation is really exciting. So that's my personal answer. You know, it answers the question, why do you go to work? Then if we want to go down to sort of how do we define it, I would say, I mean, which all of you know, as is the sort of people, planet, profit setup. And I think one key thing is that sustainability is not only hunting emissions, it's more than that. I mean, human rights is extremely important as well. But I'll leave it to the others to elaborate a bit more, perhaps.
Yeah, but I think it's really nice, as you say, that sustainability is such a big part nowadays and an important area. So you don't have to work, I mean, within the sustainability function to work with sustainability. And that is a really nice development, I think.
To me, sustainability is to have the chance, as I have, to work for a bank that are trying to do something better for next generations to come. I think that is really something fantastic that I am happy to embrace every day.
Yeah, it's really something that all companies have to think of. You were saying, Johan?
No, I think it was two great points there, but just tap into what Ronja was saying. And I think that's really the key is that it's not something that the sustainability department works with. The sustainability department could be a knowledge pool, but it's a transformation. It's with customers, it's with investments, it's with everything. So I think that's a key takeaway in a way.
Why have you chosen to work with sustainability? And what's the best part about it? Ronja?
Well, I actually work in the sales function, so in sales development. So actually, when I got the job, I didn't really choose to work with sustainability, but it's a big part of my job now, which is great. And I think that the best part is actually that I get to work with our customers and to spread our sustainability message. And I have the opportunity to really affect their mindsets and to together with our customers make their business more sustainable. And that is great.
Well, I chose my pattern when I was a student and I was studying finance. And I felt like to work for a bank or another financial institution to only earn profit and that would be the goal in itself was just not enough for me. So I was very happy when I found out that there is a flora of development bank and financing institution that has a larger dimension and a bigger and greater goal. And I've been working in these type of institutions ever since I was graduated.
Well, why did I choose this? That's a tricky question. I mean, I think it's crucially important, but I also think I mean, you can look at it either way. I think we've come past the part of what we have to do to save the climate. And if you look at the numbers, everything is really going the wrong way. But I'm a born optimist, and I get a lot of energy from being part of, as I mentioned, every engine in the world, and everything is being electrified. And I think the speed that this is happening right now and the technologies that are being brought up and the innovation climate and the sort of go-get mentality is just extraordinary fun. And I think for a company like ours, in a way, has a simpler journey, because I mean, there's an old ad you could Google from SKF from, I think it's from 1910, whereas we are selling a bearing with the pitch, you will need a smaller pile of wood to fire up your furnace and run your machine. And so it's energy efficiency, basically. So it's always been about that. Reduce friction, make a machine smaller, lighter, less energy. So it sort of fits. And what I find very fun right now working is on this enormous drive on energy reduction, downsizing, application engineering, electrification, which sort of, you get your data scientists to work on these things. So, and move the thinking from a machine that lasts a long time to just providing uptime and performance. That was a bit long answer, but it sort of ticks all my boxes, from a technological interest to business models to what you have to do. And there's an enormous energy everywhere, but we have a long way to go.
But now we touched upon what the best part about it is. But what is the most difficult part about working with sustainability?
It's what I just said, but conversely. So
For me, the best part is to see the results when we finance projects and the project and investments are completed. But the hardest part is, of course, the administration or the bureaucracy around it, that it takes time. And then also that the funding is limited and we cannot fund all great investments that are out there.
I think the hardest part for me is because my job is to kind of sell sustainability to our customers. And today, all the customers want to be more sustainable, and they know that they need to be. But often sustainability comes with a price tag that many customers are not willing to pay today. So it's kind of a difficult equation. And yeah, that's the most difficult part.
That's very interesting. Like, okay, so we all agree that it's important, but then when it comes to it, it might be difficult to really use it or so. But how do you see that your company and the work you do contribute to a more sustainable society?
I'd like to just comment on what Ronja is picking up there again on the sales and buying side. I think that's it's so fundamental that any company could produce the cleanest thing that no one will buy. So and it's a paradox because and typically if you're in sales, you could look at your customer's website. You will typically have really bold statements on where they are going to be by the year 2030 or something. You know, carbon neutral. It's all over the place. But how do you make that boil down to an individual purchaser sitting somewhere in another country that gets measured on quality and price? That's it. I mean, it's a very. I think that's where you have to go. I mean, and a lot of companies are working on this. But that's I would think that a large part of sustainability in the industry will be driven through the purchasing departments, enabling them, setting those goals and driving that. And as any clever purchaser, you're saying, I want carbon neutral, but I don't want to pay more. But until we have the carbon taxes, which are coming in the EU, that's not going to happen. So I think that's what we're seeing now from a strategic point of view is that the carbon taxes are going up internally. There's a carbon border tax, you could say, that you can't import dirtier goods from other countries. And I think that's one of the key solutions in leveling this out. But the discussion we have with our customers and our suppliers is a bit on who moves first. Because everyone knows where we're going. I mean, that's clear. And everyone wants to go there. But we don't have the systems for doing it. We're not really enabling people to make these decisions because right now they turn into binary decisions that don't make sense. But do you have any more reflections on that from your side there, Ronja or Lisa? What you see?
Yeah, quite often we discuss with the purchase department or purchasing manager, and it's very evident that they only have like cost reductions as a KPI. But mostly with smaller customers who have a very strong sustainability agenda, we are starting to see that they also have sustainability as one of the KPIs. And I think that is needed.
I absolutely agree.
If I come back to the question, if I think about it, I have to put a bank or a financier's eyes onto this, but how you see the European investment banks work and how we can contribute to a more sustainable society. I mean, we have in end of 2019, we have taken a big direction to change how we work and operate and to become the EU climate bank. And that means a change in not only an organization and how we review and how we follow up when we finance. We also work closely, of course, with the EU Commission, the Green Deal, and the EU taxonomy, and there's a lot of change in sustainable financing that's going on today that will have a major impact for the future. And I see we can just see the purchasing of green bonds, for example, as one example of something that has taken up in the last couple of years and now is huge.
I think it is how Stora Enso affect the sustainable society. We have, we have sustainable products. We have a good opportunity to really replace the materials that are not good to the environment. For instance, by replacing concrete buildings with wood buildings, and to replace plastic materials with maybe corrugated board instead. So our core business is good for from a sustainability point of view. And then how my work actually contributes is, I think my task is a lot about yeah, like I told you, it's not everybody is prepared to pay for sustainable choices. So I think my work is to make it easier for companies to choose the sustainable choice. Yeah, and develop offers that it shouldn't be hard to choose sustainability, because then it will never happen.
Well, I think from SKF's side, I think our biggest impact is when we work with our customers. We often refer to our supply chain as a hygiene factor, and I think it's just a matter of time before we have driven that one down to zero carbon. I mean, there's no other option really. I mean, we have said with our own manufacturing to be carbon neutral by 2030, and we're of course looking at how can we do that as quickly as possible with our supply chain within these sort of we have a world that we operate in. We would love to do it today, but it's just not possible. But if you're working with steel, it's an incredible difference on the CO2 content depending on where you buy it. I mean, if you look at the primary source of energy in Asia is coal. You could have countries with 60 to 65% coal in the electrical grid. So whatever you do, it's enormously polluting. Whereas in Sweden, if you compare, it's hardly any carbon, and it's easy to buy renewable energy, which you cannot do in many countries where we operate. So in one way, long term, I would say our supply chain, the impact that we do should be zero. It's a hygiene thing. It's a question of time. But what it's really fun is what can you do with our customers, sort of downstream scope 3 emissions, if we want to talk that. And here I find it very, very exciting, especially if you get to work with the engineering teams. How can you provide, as I mentioned, uptime? And just to illustrate, I mean, if you have a steel mill and one of our bearings in the conveyor belts fails, that whole batch will be destroyed. And now we're talking CO2 in tens of thousands of tons. That's just complete waste. And they have to repair it. And still, typically, that industry is consuming its base load of energy, which can be very, very, very high. Same thing with cruise ships, airplanes, you name it. So I think that's the exciting part, and where application engineers, engineering downsizing, making it electric, that's the shit. So
I'm thinking that like nudging or making users or customers choose the sustainable choice or so. One could like discuss the ethicality about that, about nudging people doing the right thing because what is the right thing and so on. But one can also then discuss is the ethicality of not doing anything about these issues. How do you think about that balance? What are you as companies doing to balance this?
Sorry, I could talk forever about all of these topics.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking. I think one thing that I find quite extraordinary is that most people, even in the most remote areas of the world, in the purchasing departments, which you could struggle with if you're in sales, and the other way around, they want to buy sustainable products. But I mean, we're all human beings sitting here working. We all, understand, what's going on. But the issue is that often the price difference between a sustainable product and a non can be so high. I mean, you could talk 20-30% difference. And as we said, this is about to change, but it is difficult. And it's clever. I like the thinking of the nudging and how can you make the selection work, and especially for, I think, when we sell through distributors, or if you buy or have consumers that are buying, that could work. But I think it's in many places when you sell, industrial business to business, it's commodities, it's computers that's running it, and frankly, if you want to be a really lean purchasing department, you don't even open up that discussion. You have APIs that connect, so it's a different discussion to have many times.
Any other reflections from Ronja or Lisa? We move on. How does your company measure sustainability, and how do the ways differ between the 3 pillars of sustainability, meaning economic, social, and environmental?
Yeah, I can start maybe. Yeah, so we have KPIs that we measure in all 3 pillars. I think we have 3 KPIs in each area, so 9 in total. Yeah, I don't know all of them by heart, but we measure like more concrete values like carbon emissions and water consumption and electricity consumption. And I think those are, I mean, the easy ones to measure. The ones in the social pillar are a bit more difficult because those are more, I mean, soft values that are a bit more difficult to measure. So yeah, but we try to like measure the number of incidents we have every year in our operations. And we have like these leadership indices that we try to measure, but those are, I mean, they say something, but they are not as concrete as measure carbon emission.
So Lisa, what do you do at the European Investment Bank to measure sustainability?
Well, here I think more of how we look into the investments that we are financing. And as we have been looking into these sustainability already for a long time, we have developed methodologies to measure and to compare both economic and social and environmental values, and all 3 are key pillar stones for us when we look at new investments to fund. But then as a bank as such, we do a carbon footprint analysis of our own work as well. But I think where we can really reach out and it's on the investments that we finance. And for example, if there is an investment that maybe doesn't have a strategy in place on some areas that are important to us, we can put that in our financing contract as a condition before disbursement, for example, to allow a client to take the time and to think about something and to move on in an area. So we can also sometimes also promote certain areas.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I could tap in. We are in both these areas. You could say that we have if you talk from the top, I mean, we have our investors and finance institutes, etc. That are, it's a very common conversation where it's a lot of demand now for companies, to be on top of that agenda. I mean, you've probably seen. So we often get questions from investors asking on if we issued TCFD reports, in which you could say, are we capturing the risks and opportunities on a strategic level? There's another tool or a framework you could say, which is called CDP, which is growing in importance. It's a way of ranking companies. How good are you performing in certain of these sustainability areas? And as Lisa also pointed out, we get a lot of question now on the taxonomy, which is being introduced to the EU, which at least I'm hoping that it will be able to set a standard that everyone will relate to, because right now it seems like every bank have their own way of ranking companies, which creates an enormous amount of administration for the sustainability departments. I hope that we're getting away from that. Then if you dive into the detail, I think any manufacturing company has a lot of KPIs that they use internally. Put it on I have targets on myself, but I know they might be on business travel and things like that I can control, and also from a group perspective in the energy we buy. But what I think is important that companies have these things, but I also think it's important to make it tangible and clear for the people working in the company that you put these issues high on the agenda. So I'm quite interested in seeing just last quarterly report. I mean, we then present how much money we're making and return of capital, all these financial numbers. But we also started to report our CO2 emissions in our own factories and how we're driving that towards zero. And what we picked up internally is that people like that. You put it next to the money. And we also have our energy consumption, basically to promote energy efficiency everywhere. And we also have the accident rate, which is a driver for, you could say, more of the softer or of those targets, because that's also key for any industrial company. And finally, we also have a target of our clean tech business, which we hope to make it so it's compatible with taxonomy once it's done. But it's basically to illustrate that the market in the clean tech areas is growing significantly. And just for us, for SKF, it's 7 billion now, which is not a significant amount yet if you look at the group's total turnover, but for any company, it's a lot. And there you have sort of the renewable area, but also remanufacturing, recycling, and those kind of things. So I'm quite interested in promoting those KPIs.
Yeah, we also have two areas where we really want to start measure our performance, and those are circular economy and biodiversity, because those are so important, but it's really difficult to measure them.
I think that's great that you have biodiversity. That's something we've been thinking of, but it's not an area where we are, except indirectly. But it's like one of those fields which could get forgotten in this chase for carbon. So I think that's great to hear.
Thank you, Johan, for mentioning the EU taxonomy. I mean, our goal is to follow the EU taxonomy and as an EU climate bank, and I think that will also improve the transparency, but also the disclosure and maybe classifications of what type of investments are sustainable and what investments are not. But in some cases, we might even be a little bit stricter than the EU taxonomy.
Yeah, and I've heard rumors that there are some proposals that the taxonomy will be stricter than expected. So we'll see what comes out. But I think as a view is that I think that this is really, really needed. And I sometimes think that the EU and international cooperation gets a lot of bashing in media because it's a simple way to do. But not too long ago, if we wanted to do one deal in Europe, there were 28 different lawyers to set up that deal. It's just complete waste. Now anyone can do it in any country, and other countries are sort of aligning. It's so quick, so much more efficient. And I think the same way in getting these frameworks that you can relate to. I mean, because that's the thing. We could say we are presenting this information in accordance with the taxonomy, but we are deviating here and there. That's fine. That's not greenwashing. I think it's crucial that we have these things. And there's no way that we will manage this crisis without international cooperation. I'm more a very, very strong proponent for more international cooperation. So I think it's so important. And bear in mind, the EU is 9% of the global emissions. I mean, but we are a leader in setting standards and showing how to do it. And also indirectly, if all our companies start to source in the way we want to source, that will have a big impact. And frankly, I think we're already seeing that on a global scales, that it's a race, and this time is a good race. It's not about building nuclear weapons or anything. It's about who can produce the cheapest renewable energy quickest, because there's a new market opening and everyone wants pole position. That's where my hope lies. Yeah, so I had to make a small push for global cooperation because it's so needed.
Good point.
But yeah, you touched upon these like being open with the figures of carbon footprint and so on. Do you mean that's a way of competing to others and a way of winning the sustainability race, sort of? Do you think that's a way to go?
I think that, I mean, as we touched upon here, that it's yeah, absolutely. You need to decarbonize your supply chain. There's no question about it. If you look at the price of carbon, in 2030, I mean, last year when we did a check, most were saying, you know, speculate about 70 to 80 to 90 euros per ton of CO2. And, you know, 6 months later, oh no, I'd probably go for 100, maybe 120. If you look at science, you should probably be around 150. So I think if you play out these scenarios, there are so many technologies that will become cost competitive, like carbon capture. Had you asked me a year ago, I had people in my team saying, oh, we really have to focus on carbon capture. And I was going, oh, you know, let's have a look. But if you look the way the carbon prices are going up and what we actually need to do to get carbon out of the air and our production facilities, you know, that will be a good business. Not tomorrow, but you have to be on that train. But this is probably where you are a lot seeing the investments for these new kind of technologies and that are growing. I mean, in hydrogen and etc. I would assume, Lisa.
Well, we see so many great investments at the moment, and there is it's amazing, I must say. It's really a nice moment at the moment to work with financing.
Gives hope. What's your company's biggest challenge versus biggest strength when it comes to sustainable solutions? Who wants to begin with that one?
I can start with that one because I think our biggest challenge is to fulfill our promise to become the EU climate bank and really have 50% of our funding being climate or environmentally investments within 2025. I mean, we have set this goal, but we also need to fulfill it. And there's 2025 is around the corner. The biggest strengths, I would say, the ambition and the willingness of everybody to work towards this, and also seeing the market and the whole this green transformation that is going on, and which is very positive.
Yeah, I think our biggest opportunity is that we actually have good products, and as Johan mentioned before, that there are like European Union taxes coming in on carbon dioxide. I mean, we are on the right side, if you can say it like that. And the biggest challenge is, like Lisa said, that it's very urgent, and we don't have a lot of time to do this change. So how do we move this faster?
I just want to agree. I think I was thinking of answering something else, but I realized that you guys answered it much better. I mean, it's really urgent. It's something that we have to do, and maybe as a reflection, we have all the opportunities of doing it, and if we don't grasp this chance, it's our own fault. We have no one to blame.
Yeah.
And how has COVID-19 affected the work with sustainability within your field for your company? Negatively or positively?
It's been a very strange period, I think. I mean, I think first of all, I mean, if you have a global company, we've been able to see how this, you know, terrible disease has been rolling out in various waves. So, I mean, I think the first things was just all hands on deck and keep our people safe. And at that time, in the beginning, we paused everything. It was just about keeping, you know, people safe and understand what will the impact be and how can we work with our customers, etc. But then it was like two parallel tracks. One was the COVID pandemic, and the second one that it seemed during this year, pretty much all major economies, even China, have made decisions to become carbon neutral. So it's sort of in parallel, everything on sustainability was accelerated. So I would say we had a little bit of a break for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, but otherwise it's been just, we've been growing the teams, we've been growing what we're doing, we've set bolder targets. Everything has been basically moving. It's been a year of acceleration, to say the least, in a way I didn't think when this took off. My fear was that, now this will put focus on something else, and we really need to address this crisis. But it was really the other way around. How did you experience it?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. But then I also think that like the pandemic kind of opened people's eyes to how to handle a crisis, and that we can't work alone to solve the problem, that we needed to work together. And I hope that is transferred to the climate crisis as well, that we collaborate closer to solve this.
And closer, do you mean with other companies as well then, or?
Yeah, both with other companies and like with other countries. Yeah, like you once said before, like international collaboration is key.
I think for us as a bank in general, at the end of 2019, we had set our new climate agenda, or launching the EU Climate Bank. We were doing a climate roadmap going forward. And then came COVID, the pandemic, and being the European Investment Bank, we're also here to support our clients in a difficult situation, and we're here to support the SMEs. So I think we had to gear up on 2 gears at the same time, and also figure out how we could support the European enterprises. And at the same time, our management was very firm to say that we're not stepping down on the climate roadmap at the moment. We're continuing. So I think we are quite tired because we've been quite busy this year. But at the same time, I remember in the past if we went for due diligence and we were flying out with a team of 1 engineer, 1 economist, 1 loan officer, and maybe some other people to look into projects and do the due diligence, and you fly back. And I was sometimes thinking, like, when you do a repeat operation with a repeat client, I was asking, do we really need all of us to fly in there? Could we not just do a video conference? And it was always, no, we need to see the client. It's so important. And now we can do it without flying and seeing. And then, of course, it's always, you get a feel for a company, how they're doing when you see the sites and you talk to the people. And I understand that is also very important, but there are cases where you don't have to fly.
And that's good, both good for the environment, but also it saves so much time not to travel, especially if it's maybe a country in Asia that you're gonna visit for a couple of hours.
Oh, I agree. I mean, the speed of things. I mean, to put together, if you have 4 people with busy calendars and, find 2 days and meet up somewhere, and now it's like, let's have a meeting now, half an hour on Teams, and then you pause it. And one thing I found so extraordinary. I mean, it's in so many of these discussions or negotiations that we had before the pandemic started, we would use Teams even before the pandemic, but we were sitting in our suits and talking, and then gradually, in the UK, I mean, you couldn't go out. So I mean, now I know the children, and we have this of people I negotiate with, and we have in one negotiation on. We have a Netflix pause. You could say, I have to have a Netflix pause, and you turn something else for your kids. And I actually love that because I mean, I also have small children. You have small children, and you get actually a stronger trust and relationship than what you do in going out to any generic restaurant anywhere eating the same generic dinner, to be frank. So there are some good things about this as well.
Do you dare to try to say what will happen after the pandemic? How will the situation be then about working remotely and so on?
And what do you think?
I definitely think that we will still travel, because I mean, there is large benefits with seeing people in real life, but I really think that we won't do as many, and especially those over just a couple of hours. I hope that we won't do those anymore.
Yeah, I also think we will work differently after and have much more flexible working. Working ways of working and communication will be different, and the things that really works well through the pandemic times will stay for sure.
No, I think so too. I'm personally a very strong believer in, you know, the personal freedom. If you want to work from home and you can do your job there, just do it. But then I feel, you know, you want to go and meet your colleagues in that sense. But I really do think that this traveling, a lot of the traveling has been unnecessary. And I'm almost thinking, but this is more my personal thinking, is that, I mean, you need to meet colleagues and customers, etc. But maybe you should, you know, do it in a way where you hang out, if you see what I mean, and then you can leave the negotiation and the details for a video meeting. Because I mean, I have a team in Germany and one in the US. I really miss seeing them and, you know, sort of get that what's happening, what's ongoing, and that collaboration. But it's not like that I have to fly to the States 5 times a year. That would be ridiculous. But at some point to combine that. I've also said to myself, I'd like to take the train to our factories in Germany next time instead of flying. So just to experience that. It would be like the old Interrail times 20 years ago.
Yeah, let's hope the best part then of this situation will stay after this pandemic. What type of competences do you see as important for future work within sustainability?
I think that is a really difficult question to answer, because I really think that all competences are needed. I mean, sustainability, we will always need, I mean, the engineering competence and the technical expertise to come up with new innovations and new solutions. But then, I mean, those innovations won't reach the market without people who know, I mean, the market and how to distribute it to a wider audience. But I think that it would be good with people who know, who are interested in both of the sides. So they could both understand the technical part of the business and the marketing part. That would be beneficial, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with what Ronja is saying there. And if I go back, I see this really as digitalization. Is that you don't have to be this. You need the software programmers, but not everyone needs to be able to do it. But everyone needs to understand what a software programmer needs. You know, you need to understand how you structure your information so a computer can find it. You need to understand, like, in that sense, what's an API, what's those things. And I think it will be the same things for sustainability. And it's about these, as a fundamental thing, understanding a life cycle assessment. I think that's key. And because when you're an engineer, you're designing something, you must design on all phases. But in a way, you could say that this is knowledge that comes through you're interested in sustainability parts and what it could lead to, but you're also approaching what does your customer want. I mean, there will be basically more money in providing something that you could repair, that has a longer uptime, that you could recycle in various ways. I mean, that's really where everything is going. So I think there will be a certain amount of knowledge you just need to understand, and it will be more specific. I mean, depending on where you're working. Like if you're working in sales, you will have to know the taxonomy, because that would be a sales pitch. You could go to a steel mill and say, you are just this little far from reaching that threshold in the last issue of the taxonomy, which then sets out how much emission you should have per ton in a certain industry. That would be a value, because that will trigger what finances that company could get. And then if it's a company with really bad finances, and they would need, you know, a lot of loans, which a lot of companies have now. I mean, it has a bigger value. So it's I think it will be there naturally.
Yeah, I was just thinking of something new that may create new job opportunities. At the moment, we have this non-financial reporting, which the EU, the Commission, is now putting a new reporting or sustainable reporting for all companies that are large companies and listed companies. And previously or currently, this non-financial reporting includes 10,000 enterprises, and with the new recommended reporting, this will entitle 50,000 companies. And here maybe, and the idea is that the sustainability reporting should be as mainstream, as standard as financial reporting. And I see here there must be a lot of new jobs coming out that could be interesting also for engineering backgrounds.
I think, I mean, I agree. I mean, and it's an area. There's a lot of if you can't measure it, it's hard to remedy it. And there will be, as Ronja said, there also with taxes. I mean, at some point you need the firm data that can be audited, because it will be you will be paying if you can't do it. So I think that's one part. But what triggers me right now, and we are spending most of the energy, is with our customers, with the customers' applications. How do we make them more efficient? How do we make them electric? How do we make them run on renewable energy? How can we produce and build more renewable energy in any aspect? And here I think it's just at the same time, digital solutions have become so cheap. Sensors have become so cheap, and what you can do with them, it's just imagination that sets the limits. So I think it's, you know, if you really want to do something tangible, become a kick-ass engineer in any field, but focus your energy and spend your time on something where it matters. And at the end of the day, is we want our satellites to say, oh, wow, we've reduced our carbon emissions. That's what we need to do.
It's good then that I think all Chalmers programs need at least one sustainability course, so that's that's good.
Yeah, I support that. Yeah.
How do you see Chalmers students contributing to sustainability in the future?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we kind of discussed before, that we always need people with a technical background. And I think that the engineering programs get both the technical part and kind of this like innovation part as well, to come up with new solutions and to think new and not be stuck with the old solutions. And then also maybe not only Chalmers students, but young people in general. I think we need them to join companies and to come with fresh perspectives. So maybe they can influence all people at the company.
So we obviously have many former Chalmers students here, and I think it's as Ronja is saying, it's a great knowledge that we bring on. I mean, that we get to the company, and it's we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for people coming from Chalmers. I mean, I think that's fair to say. But one reflection I just had that struck me in a way now that I've been working is that one thing you have as a student that you don't have when you have 3 kids and a full-time job is time. And I would, if you are interested in sort of, I'd like to try this, I'd like to try something out, this is the time to do it. I think personally I spent too much I'll do it when I have the knowledge, I'm going to build the knowledge, etc., etc. I mean, I think a lot of innovation and ideas come from you have the time. I love the entrepreneurship programs that you have together with the business school. So if you have an idea, pool with other crazy students that and build that knowledge together, because this is your opportunity in time to try out something. The moment is now, and the timing is absolutely perfect. I mean, the world is screaming for sustainable solutions. That was not the question, but I had to say it. So, yeah.
Thank you. I think we should wrap up a bit. So I just want to ask a final question, and that's what's your best advice for young engineers that want to work with sustainability? Do's and don'ts.
I think you should be open to try and fail and learn from it. So don't be afraid to, like you once said, to pitch your ideas to someone and to try it out. It's okay to fail.
I think my best advice is to do something that you really like to do, because when you do things or work with things that you like to do, you also become good at it, and that is very nice.
I think those two are great comments. I think again, you know, as a student, you have a chance to do something right now, and don't be afraid of doing that. Because what you learn when you start working is that for most things you get that are difficult, you have no clue how to solve them. I mean, you don't. So you can just but then you solve them anyway, and that's what it's about, to go to work. So you could just start doing it right now, and you could save 20 years of that experience. And I wish you good luck.
And then to add, maybe if you are really interested in sustainability and want to work within the area, I think it's good to start working at the company who really takes sustainability serious. Because then sustainability is integrated in all the functions.
That's a good point.
Do we have any question from the audience? Otherwise, we will wrap up. Just unmute and speak. Otherwise, I want to thank you all, Lisa, Johan, and Ronja, for sharing your thoughts on sustainability. More important than ever, maybe. And all of you in the audience, thank you for listening. And this event series, Let's Talk Sustainability, ain't over till it's over. SKF and Johan will come back this Monday to discuss sustainability again, and then it's Vasakronan on Tuesday on the same topic. So I hope I will see you all then.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.